Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our fifth session on our series Marketing Cloud onto the next frontier. Today, we're going to touch on a really exciting topic, um, which is continuing with our foundations series. And we're going to talk about data cloud. If you want to go to the next slide, Mike. Thank you. So yesterday, last week we talked about flow and how flow impacts. Is so important to be able to effectively run marketing campaigns in Marketing Cloud. And the idea for this session is the same: is to um, have Mike walk you through why Data Cloud plays such a critical role in Marketing Cloud advance and growth and the next generation of marketing apps. So some frequent, some housekeeping items. The sessions will be recorded. Every time, if you register to this session, you'll receive an email with the link to a recording and the link to the slideshare. But also, there is a YouTube channel, Next Frontier Marketer, which you can check the playlist for these sessions, and you can watch the recordings, and you will have the links to the slideshares there. If you have any questions during these sessions, I already see David, and we didn't even start, and he's already has a question, which is great. Post them in the chat window. I'll do my best to answer some of them, but then we'll answer them at the end. And if there's any questions that I feel tossing to Mike, he'll answer during the presentation. You can connect with other trailblazers of a community using the How to SFMC channel, Slack channel. So there's a link there. And there is and the last link is just the link to the remaining of our series. I'm gonna keep adding. We have about 9 sessions or 8 sessions already. So I'm gonna keep adding them. I'm gonna add them later on. So just keep an eye for those. If you go to the next slide real quick, we're gonna have a little bit of a break because next week is Dreamforce. So I hope to see you all there. If you see me, feel free to tackle me. No, don't tackle me, but feel free to say hi. I would love to meet you in person. And then we're gonna have David Mendoza talking about Asian Force, similar session format. Why Asian Force is so relevant for Marketing Cloud. And then we're gonna have someone at Salesforce talk about all the exciting announcements made around Marketing Cloud during Dreamforce, and we'll continue the sessions from there. So with that, I would like to introduce everyone to Mike Morris, who's going to be our presenter today. Mike, go ahead.
Sure. Well, thank you. Thanks everyone for joining today. My name is Mike Morris. I'm a senior engagement manager with Sercante. I've been with Sercante about 6 years now. Prior to that, I was in marketing. So this is kind of like my second act in my career. I was in marketing for 20 some years before joining Sercante and really getting fully into the Salesforce ecosystem. And really, it works really, really well, especially in situations like this, because a lot of the folks that we're dealing with are marketing operations and marketing managers and operations teams. And frankly, I sat in those seats, so I can really, I guess, identify and sympathize with a lot of what you're going through. So hopefully that'll help me give you some relevant answers to questions today and really help you understand how these tools work from both a technical side as well as the marketing side of the house. So again, like Pedro said, I'll be at Dreamforce too. If you see me around, stop by, say hi. Our company is hosting a marketing bash the first night, so stop on by. We'd like to see you. So our agenda for today, we're going to talk a little bit about data cloud basics, and really, I want to be transparent here. We are going to hit the basics of data cloud. Data cloud is a pretty intense tool, and we could have multiple sessions on data cloud here. So I'm just going to give you the basics today, kind of some of the key components and key features that tie into marketing and how they deal with Marketing Cloud Growth and Marketing Cloud Advanced. We're going to talk a little bit about data streams, identity resolution rules, unified individuals, segmentations, and finally data graphs. Along the way, I'm also going to hop into data cloud a little bit and show you some of what we're talking about. I'm a visual learner, so slides are great and talking through stuff's great, but seeing stuff in action to me is also very helpful and very beneficial. And like Pedro said, we want to keep this session, lively and open. So if you have questions, pop them in the chat. I've also asked him too that if there are any questions that pop up that are relevant and need to be answered in the moment, we'll pause and answer those questions in the moment because I don't want to lose context. So with that said, let's get into it. So, what is Data Cloud? So Data Cloud is a platform that unifies all your data and it really creates a single source of truth for all your customer data in a single view. And it really simplifies complex data, making it easy to use and understand. And it activates the data, driving personalization to levels that we couldn't see before in marketing. Before the call, we were talking a little bit. Pato comes from the marketing cloud engagement world. I come from the marketing cloud account engagement world. And one of the issues that I always ran into was cross-object personalization. I could only personalize records inside account engagement based on data I had in the system. I couldn't pull data from other objects. One of the key impacts and key features of Marketing Cloud Growth and Marketing Cloud Advanced is the ability to actually do cross-object personalization. I'm working with many clients right now, and some have actually moved to this platform for that sole reason. So that's a really cool thing to keep in mind, and it really helps improve your marketing. So some key terms we're going to talk through today are data streams. Data stream, simply put, is the data you're bringing into Data Cloud. A data lake object is really a storage container for that data you ingested in the data stream. A data model object is a grouping of data made of data streams, insights, and DMOs that can be standard or custom. So think of this similar to like a Salesforce standard object and a custom object. It's just inside Data Cloud. The Customer 360 model is the model used by Data Cloud to connect and unify customer data to various Salesforce products. We're also going to talk about harmonization a little bit today. So harmonization is a process of mapping your data from your data streams and your ingested data to the Customer 360 data model. And then this will help us generate the unified individual profile, which is essentially I'm going to call it a linked record because I want to be really careful here and not say a merged record or a deduped record because it's not. We're just linking all those multiple records we have together to give us a unified individual that we can then use for our segmentation purposes. And the identity resolution rule is the process that runs in the background. It's almost like the merge rules or the identification rules that actually produces a unified individual. And again, we're going to talk about that today as well. Perfect. So let me move on to the next slide here. So how Data Cloud works. So Data Cloud has several key components we're going to talk about. First are the data sources. So the key thing to keep in mind here is the data inside data in Data Cloud is not natively there. Just because you're using Salesforce doesn't mean that Salesforce data is in Data Cloud. The data has to be brought into the system. So we can ingest data sources. We can ingest data from Salesforce. So it can be your lead object, your contact object, standard objects, custom objects, data from Marketing Cloud engagement, store data, website engagement data. All that data can be brought in from your Customer 360 data. You can also ingest data from other data cloud storage vendors like S3, Google, Azure can be brought in. And then there's also bring your own data lake objects like Snowflake, Google BigQuery can be brought in. And there are probably, I'm not even gonna throw a number out there because the number keeps changing. Salesforce keeps adding more and more, but there are tons of native connectors. I mean, I know there's greater than 100 native connectors that allow you to bring in data from other sources into the system. I mean, you could connect a Google Sheet, for example, and bring that data into Data Cloud. So you can really ingest data from just about any kind of source you see out there. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take that ingested data and we're going to map it and harmonize it. And this is where we're going to do data mapping inside Data Cloud. So we're going to look at the fields we ingested. Like if we ingest a first name field from our lead object, we're going to map that to the first name field on our individual object. If we also ingest a first name field from Snowflake, we're going to map that to the same location. And this will help us in the harmonization process when we're actually creating the unified individual. We're just mapping these data fields to a common object, a common location, so we can harmonize data. And then we're gonna have our identity resolution rules that's gonna run behind the scenes. And it's gonna create that unified individual for us, that unified customer profile. And that's what we're gonna use in our segmentation. That's what we're gonna use to create calculated insights. That's what's gonna really power our marketing. All right. Pedro, I'm trying to look at the chat right now, but I see we have the housekeeping items pinned and I can't
Let
see
me
the chat.
hide it so you can
There you
like
go.
you
Awesome.
should do it. Yeah.
There you go. Awesome. And thanks, Aaron, for putting the link in there for the marketer bash. Now that I can see the chat. I do want to call out the fact that Data Cloud is consumption based. And I say this not to scare marketers, not to scare anybody, because I actually think the consumption based model is a good thing. The reason I like this consumption based model is there are certain features and functionalities, like Data Cloud's a pretty advanced tool. Some of the AI capabilities are very advanced. And in a lot of cases, a smaller organization typically wouldn't be able to afford to get into these features. But because this Data Cloud is consumption based, there's an accessibility component here that's making it easier for smaller companies to get involved. When Marketing Cloud Growth first came out, it was actually geared towards SMBs, and this was a great way to get SMBs capabilities and tools that they didn't have before. But we do have to be responsible with the credits. So, Data Cloud does use credits. They're essentially digital currency. The currency is used for is consumed based on anything you do within the system. So if you ingest data, for example, there's a multiplier, and we're looking at the number of records that we're touching, using the multiplier, and then determining the number of credits it consumes. So there are multiple data service credits, including data service credits, data storage, Einstein requests, segment activations. There are multiple, I guess, types of credits that are consumed, and these can be viewed in your digital wallet. So the thing that I will say about credits, really from a marketing perspective, is just be responsible with them. Think about it. Again, I come from the Marketing Cloud account engagement world, and I'm used to having a dynamic list that can refresh all the time, and it doesn't cost me anything. So it doesn't matter how often I refresh. Well, in Data Cloud, you do need to think a little bit about the freshness of the data you need. If you're sending out your newsletter once a month, for example, set the list to refresh once a month. Don't refresh it daily. If you refresh daily, you're just using additional credits and really not getting any benefit, but just costing money to your organization. So in the learn more slide, I do have a link to a blog post I wrote about some ways to optimize your credit consumption and credit use. I encourage you to take a look at that. It also has some great links to resources from Salesforce, including a Data Cloud credit calculator, which is a great way to kind of estimate some of the credits you would use. And another great resource is actually your Salesforce AE. AEs have been really, really helpful with some of my clients, helping them approximate the number of credits they would use based on larger databases or larger data operations that they're working on. So credits are nothing to be scared of. It's just something to be aware of. So let's talk a little bit about how Data Cloud works with Marketing Cloud. So we talked a little bit about the data streams. So again, we're going to ingest our data. These would be our lead data, our contact data, our account data. We're going to ingest those data streams. We're going to have an identity resolution rule running, which is going to actually take those records, link the like records together, and create our unified individuals. From there, we'll use our unified individuals to create our segments, and that will really drive our marketing efforts. And another factor inside Marketing Cloud Growth and Advanced is this system is very consent-based. So there is another object, and I know in the flow session you may have talked about this or hit this, but there's a consent element that you'll use when you're creating flows that will actually create consent records for unified individuals based on the subscriptions that they're choosing to subscribe to. And this is another factor that will tie into Marketing Cloud Growth. Won't tie into today's conversation on Data Cloud too much, but I want to explain it since it's on that slide. So Data Cloud setup. So right now, when you're setting up Marketing Cloud Growth or Advanced, the first thing you need to do is enable Data Cloud. And I'm just gonna give a shout out to the Salesforce product team right now because they've done a phenomenal job making this process so much easier than it was in the past. The first few times I worked on this, and Aaron, I know you're here and you've done the same thing. The first few times that we actually deployed this product, we had to go in and create Salesforce CRM connectors inside Data Cloud. We had to manually load data kits. You had to manually install data kits. You had to deploy data streams manually. Salesforce has taken that all away and automated that whole process now. So it's much easier to set up from a setup perspective. You simply click a button, really wait about 15 minutes, and by that point, all your Data Cloud information is set up. Obviously, this is based on users who aren't already using Data Cloud. If your organization already has a Data Cloud instance in place, then you'll just want to work with the Data Cloud team to make sure that you're connecting properly and not overwriting any of the data they have. So the first thing we need to do, like I mentioned before, Data Cloud is basically a blank canvas. So once you set up Data Cloud, there is no data in here, unless you bring the data in. So the data kits that Salesforce is installing for you is going to bring in your basic data from your lead objects, account objects. It's going to be brought in through that process we just talked about a moment ago as we're enabling. But if you have custom objects or any other objects, you do have to manually bring those objects in through data streams. Even the data streams that Salesforce does create for you natively, it will do mapping for you on the standard objects or standard fields. But if you have custom fields within those objects that you need mapped, you will need to map those to your unified individual or the right location so you can harmonize that data and then access it. So the mapping process is really, from the data stream, you can go into the mapping and really just map from the data lake object on the left to the data model object on the right. And I'm going to jump into a data stream real quick and kind of show you how this looks. So this is my lead data stream. This is a SDO org I set up. So, there might be some crazy stuff in here because I use this for other things too. But this is an SDO org. The lead stream was automatically created for me when I deployed Data Cloud. And from here, this is where I do my mapping. So I can go to my review stage here. And this shows me my current mappings. Now, in the case of the leads, the thing that we're looking for right now is it is mapped in multiple locations, but this individual is what we're really looking towards for our harmonization. This is what we use to create our unified individual, and this is what we'll need to access our data. So in this case, let's take a field like title right now. So title is in my DMO, or in my DLO right now, my data lake object, but it's not mapped to the data model. So to map the field over, it's a pretty simple operation. You just click the field and just click where you want it to go to. Save it, and really that's how the mapping works in that process. So now I've just mapped an additional field over, and this will allow me, when my unified individual runs, that title field will now be one of my fields that's being incorporated. The thing that I want to call out too here is when you actually set up Data Cloud the first time, a lot of fields are going to be brought in here, a lot of the default fields. But if you don't see a field that you need, you can always add additional source fields at any point in time by clicking Add Source Field. And then you can choose the fields you need and bring that into your DLO, and then you can map that over. Things never work fast when you're doing it live. But this will show me all the fields that are available that are not yet currently included in the DLO. Now, if there are fields that you don't see here that you need, it's likely that the Data Cloud, Salesforce Data Cloud connector doesn't have access to that field. So if you go to the Salesforce Data Cloud permission and actually look at that permission, you can look at the object and see the fields and just check the box to make sure that the field is available. And that way it'll show up in this list of source fields that you can then add to your DLO. Perfect. With that, I'm going to drop back in my slide deck. So any questions on data streams right now? I mean, if there's anything that we feel like we need to answer in real time, happy to address that.
There's a question about person accounts, if they present problems for data streams.
I'm sorry. I see Chris has already answered that, right? They're not for data streams, but there are complications.
Yeah.
There are some challenges we run into with consent related to consent records associated to person accounts. But I do have clients who are using person accounts, and we are able to kind of use them within Marketing Cloud Growth and Advanced. So the next area I want to hit on today is identity resolution rule. So, what is identity resolution rule? Why does it matter? Identity resolution rules link those multiple records from different source profiles to create the unified profile. Again, think of this now as, you have your lead data, you have website engagement data, you have data coming in from Google, you have data coming in from S3, you have multiple records coming in. So you might have 6, 8, 10 Mike Morrises based on different data sources that they're engaging with. Well, when we're sending an email out, we want to, basically have a single source of truth. This identity resolution rule allows us to create that single source of truth by linking those like records together into one record that we will then use for our segmentation. And it's really used throughout Marketing Cloud. So it's used for our segmentation, personalization, and also used in our scoring. When you look at the match rules, it looks a lot like dedupe logic. So there are some basic rules, fuzzy name and normalized email, fuzzy name, normalized phone. So it looks a lot like a duplication rule, like you'd see like in a tool like Cloud Dingo or something like that. But the key here is we are not changing data. We are not deleting records. We're not merging records. We're not changing the data in any way, shape, or form. We're just linking data together. So when you think about identity resolution rule, adding criteria decreases the likelihood of a match. Now, I had to wrap my head around that at first when I started, the first time I saw this. So I like this slide for kind of walking through how this works. So in this example, I have 4 Astro records. I'm basically have an identity resolution rule configured based on first name, last name, and phone number. The way the rule will work is it's going to look at all these Astros and it's going to compare all records that have first name, last name, and phone number and unify those. So record 002 here at the top right doesn't have a phone number. Therefore, this record will not be considered for evaluation. So only records 1, 3, and 4 will be considered for evaluation. Now, if I change my identity resolution rule a little bit and add email as well, now I've further eliminated record 003 because in order for it to be considered for a match, it has to meet all the criteria of the match rule. So adding rules will actually decrease the number of matches. However, we do have the ability to add additional rule groups with or statements. So we could have rule 1, first name, last name, and phone, or rule 2, first name, last name, and email, or rule 3, first name, last name, and job title, for example. We can use these to basically expand and actually increase the likelihood of a match by using the or statements to connect versus simply using an and operator. So here's an example of what a unified identity resolution, I can't talk today, identity resolution rule looks like. So in this case, I'm using your fuzzy name and normalized email. I'm using the standard match rule from the system. And you can see this rule is configured to use the individual first name on a fuzzy match, the individual last name on exact match, and the contact point email address. So this is the email address from the unified individual, exact normalized. And the exact normalized is basically saying case sensitivity is taken out. So it's kind of normalizing this. Salesforce has a great document out here as well that explains what the match methods mean, the fuzzy and exact. So we'll be certain that's shared with you as well. And then the rule will run and what we'll do is give you a consolidation rate. So this is essentially your match rate or your dupe rate. So in this dev org here, this SDO, it's saying approximately 7% of the records I had in the system, the unified individuals, were, it found matches based on the identity resolution rule and it reconciled those. So that's my consolidation rate. So it kind of gives you an example how that works. And then the reconciliation rules are used to basically say, if you find a match, which one wins? So in most cases, you'll configure these, like if you find a matching contact, a matching lead, you'd assume the contact data is the most relevant and you take the contact data over the lead data. But you can customize these based on the source of the record, the recency of the data that was entered. These are just used to, again, determine which rule actually wins or which data actually wins. So when you do this, it will create a unified individual record for you. And that unified individual would say, let's say there's, again, 3 mics in the system, and one has a job title, one doesn't. Now, by having this unified individual, I can then create a segment saying find all records with job title equal, engagement manager. And because one of my records does have that job title, I'll be included in that segment now. Perfect. All right, so segmentation. So now that we have our unified individuals created, we need to start thinking about segmentation and how does this impact us? So Data Cloud is the primary segmentation tool in Marketing Cloud, growth and advanced. So again, if you're using, Pardot, you can actually segment within Pardot, specifically. And in Marketing Cloud Growth and Advanced, we're actually using Data Cloud to do our segmentations. Segments are built using identified using unified individuals and based on the identity resolution rules. The thing that's cool about this is it's a really powerful tool, and you can build highly targeted segments that you just couldn't build before because you can access data from all locations within Salesforce. And the segments can have a one-to-many relationship with campaigns, which means you can create, one segment of, marketing managers and apply that and use it across multiple segments, multiple campaigns that you're sending out. And again, like we talked about before, Data Cloud is consumption based. So this is just the PSA again. Think about your freshness when you're building these segments. When you are building segments, you can set a refresh schedule and say, refresh daily, refresh monthly, refresh weekly, or you could say don't refresh at all, and you can actually trigger refreshes from the flow. So when you're building your segments, think about the freshness that you need. Make sure you're choosing the proper refresh schedule. And really, this is just a way to optimize your credit consumption to make sure that you're not using more credits than you truly need to. Now, when you're building segments inside Marketing Cloud Growth and Advanced, there are actually several ways you can build this. You can use the visual builder. You can use Einstein or Agentforce now to actually use natural language. You can also use, they're called quick filters that are on the campaign object within Marketing Cloud Advanced and Growth. I'm just gonna look at the visual builder today. Obviously, segmentation could be a whole another session here, but I just want to look at the visual builder to kind of show you how this works and show you how some of the key components tie into here. So let's jump in here. Again, this is a dev org, so excuse data here if there's anything crazy in here. But what we're going to do here is we're going to go into our visual builder and we're going to create a new segment. The key areas on this that we need to think about is our default data space. I do see the question there about business units already. So this is something that is interesting to know right now. So right now, all Marketing Cloud Growth and Advanced orgs use the default data space only. So Data Cloud allows you to have different data spaces, which are kind of similar to business units, but you cannot access those right now through Marketing Cloud Growth and Advanced. I do know the product team is working on business unit solution for this tool, so I'm not going to speculate on what it would be. But the key to keep in mind right now is when you are building segments for Marketing Cloud Growth or Advanced, you're always going to choose the default data space. We're also going to always segment on the unified individual. So again, this is the unified individual that's produced from our identity resolution rule. And then I'll just put our name in here. And then this takes us into our area where we can actually choose a refresh schedule. And this is what I'm talking about on the refresh schedule and the publish. So the publish is going to use last 2 years worth of data. This is what we use in most cases. I generally recommend folks set this refresh schedule to do not run. Again, this is just a way to make sure that we're not using too many credits. However, we can set this to say, run daily every 12 hours or run every 24 hours. You can set weekly schedules or monthly schedules. The key here is the more often the segment runs, the more often the segment refreshes, the more credits are going to be consumed by the operation. So that's where that freshness really comes into play. Again, if we're going to send our newsletter once a month, what's the use in refreshing this thing daily? We're just chewing up credits we don't need to chew up. So again, I generally do the do not. And then the look back window is basically how far back we're looking at engagement data. Engagement data, does tend to create a lot of records inside Data Cloud. So the look back window of 90 days really helps us to minimize credit consumption because we're not looking at tons and tons of data in the past. And then from here, we just go into the builder, and I'm not going to get too much into building right now, but this is kind of where we build our segment out. We can choose our attributes that we want. We write direct attributes that are on the individual as well as our related attributes. So if I wanted somebody from, let's go contact point address. This is the Cleveland user group today. So we'll say state province equals Ohio. So I could just, build my segment out here. And this is how I would do my segmentation inside Marketing Cloud. And obviously you can add additional records here, additional attributes. You can add OR statements and nest records as well. Again, whole other session we can do on segmentation. The last thing I really want to talk about related to Marketing Cloud Growth and Advanced and Data Cloud are data graphs. Data graphs to me are like the secret sauce behind this system. It's really what enables marketers to do things in this platform that they can't do in other platforms. So data graphs essentially connect fields and objects to the unified individual, and it allows you to use these fields as dynamic content, merge fields, repeaters. Inside the flows, you can use them as exit rules. You can also access these data points in decision elements. So really, anything that's could be connected to a unified individual can be built into your data graph, and then you can access those fields, again, in Marketing Cloud Growth and Advanced. Data graphs natively do set to refresh daily, but you can change this as well too. You have the ability to refresh these every 30 minutes, hourly, weekly, or monthly based on your needs. You can create multiple data graphs inside Data Cloud, but the key here is only one data graph can be associated to Marketing Cloud Growth or Advanced as the default data graph. And what will happen is when you set that default data graph and then you start building emails inside Marketing Cloud Growth or Advanced, it will connect to that data graph as the data source, and it will allow you to access those fields from the data graph in your email, merge fields, dynamic content, repeaters, like we talked about. The key that I'll call out with data graphs is thinking before acting is a really critical thing to do here. You can easily add objects or DMOs and fields to a data graph, but once you actually create a data graph and actually activate it, dependencies are created in the system, and then removing those dependencies is tough. So, if I created a data graph and I brought in the wrong DMO, for example, and I clicked on several fields that are, duplicative or incorrect data, and I want to go back later and actually remove that DMO or remove that those fields from the data graph, I really can't because the dependencies are there, and you really have to rebuild the data graph at that point. So I do encourage people when they're doing these data graphs, start small, start with the data that you know you're going to need. Start with your basic standard objects, your minimum fields that you need for personalization. And you can always add to data graphs at any point in time. Just removing data from data graphs is where it really gets tricky. So again, this is one of my SDOs, and I don't know why this thing is stuck in a perpetually running state here. But here's a data graph we'll look at today. So here's an example of a data graph. This one's pretty simple. We're just looking at the unified individual. We're using the unified link individual as a bridge to get to our accounts contact point data as well. So from here, for example, I could say on the unified individual, I want to bring in their first name, last name. If I later say I want their job title, I can click job title and add this at any point in time. But if I want to remove a field, that's where it gets tricky. So that's where I'm saying, starting with the minimum that you need is really the key here. Same thing with contact point address. You can bring in data points you need. I can also go to the edit on this. Let's go this one. And you'll see when I go to edit, I can add additional DMOs. So I could say I'm going to add I'm just clicking account contact DMO off the account contact. So I can add additional DMOs at any point in time. But what I can't do is I can't go in and actually remove fields. So the fields are grayed out here that I've already pre-selected. So this is where I can add new fields, but I can't pull off old fields. So that's really where it's critical to think about the data graph first. Start with a very minimum data graph. I know Salesforce has a couple of links out here where it shows recommended data graphs for starting with Marketing Cloud growth. For example, certain fields like telephone need to be checked. Contact point email address needs to be selected as well. So things that the system needs for generating personalization points. Perfect. So, and the other thing to keep in mind is just like anything in Data Cloud, refreshing the data graph does consume credits. So this is, again, where the daily refresh, in my eyes, is generally adequate, and that's what I generally do. But if you do need it to run more frequently, you can. Just know that it will cost you more credits if you do this. Perfect. And then my slides got out of order here. To learn more, there are some great Trailhead modules on Data Cloud. I saw somebody ask earlier, about getting a Data Cloud, account to play with. You can get those if you're a Salesforce partner. You can get an SDO, and it will have Data Cloud connected to it. If you're not a partner, I don't believe you can truly get a demo of it. But some of these Trailhead modules, like the Create a Data Stream in Data Cloud, does actually use a Trailhead org that actually has Data Cloud connected. So you can physically create a data stream. You can physically do the mapping. So that's a good way to actually play with Data Cloud a little bit if you don't have a partner account where you can actually get access to an SDO org.
Yeah, I put a link there, Mike. The new developer account comes now with Agentforce and Data Cloud.
Awesome. Thank you.
I don't know how much you can do with it, how much manipulation, but at least it's something if you're not a partner, to try.
Perfect. There are also some great videos out there that Salesforce has. I put a couple of links to a couple of key ones that tie into the topics we talked about today, such as ingestion and unified individuals. And then, again, a lot of great blog posts out there too. I put a couple in here that I've found on Spot for Pardot, which is our blog, as well as Agentic Marketer has a lot of great posts. I'd encourage you to check those out. I listed a few here that I think are relevant to today's conversation, but things are changing very rapidly in the system, and new blog posts, new insights are popping up daily. So I encourage you to stay informed, follow some of these sites, join the Slack groups if you can, and just stay involved with them and continue learning, because it is a full-time job. I spent the better part of this year working on this product, and I tell you, it's continuous learning, which is great. So some key takeaways that I'll give you today is thinking about Data Cloud in general. It is the central engine of Marketing Cloud Next. So you cannot have Marketing Cloud growth or advance without Data Cloud. It is a prerequisite. The second you go to set this up, it is the very first thing you're going to need to do. It has to be set up before you can actually get moving. Other things I'll call out is, I learned this a lot when I was learning Data Cloud too, is that Data Cloud really needs a lot of planning in advance. Clicking the buttons in Data Cloud to set up a data stream to ingest data, those are pretty simple tasks, but the planning is where you really need to spend your time. It should be like an 80-20 mix, 80% planning and 20% implementation. Because what happens is when you start building, data streams, when you start building segments, when you start building data graphs, all these things start building relationships inside Data Cloud. And once you get to the point and say, we don't like this, or this is wrong, I want to remove this, this data stream, I want to remove this data graph, you run into all these dependencies that have to be resolved before you can actually remove the item. So spend time planning before you start clicking buttons. Clicking buttons is easy. You can do that in dev orgs. You can do that in SDOs. But spend that time to plan before you actually start turning on stuff in the production org, because untangling is difficult. We're actually working with a client right now, and when Data Cloud's implemented for them, for some reason, duplicate objects were created. Like instead of using the standard lead object, they created a duplicate lead object, a custom lead object, a custom account object, a custom account object, custom contact object. So right now we're in the process of trying to untangle all these things. So it's better to think before you click. You're probably sick of hearing me say it, but Data Cloud is consumption based. So I'll say it one last time just to make sure that we all have that. And some of the benefits it really gives us is Data Cloud really empowers marketers with access to data and richer insights than we ever had before. So we can do a lot more stuff from a marketing perspective that we couldn't do previously in other platforms. The identity resolution rules and unified individuals are the foundation for effective segmentation and personalization. And the data graphs really unlock that cross-object personalization capabilities that we couldn't do previously. So those are some of the really key components of the tool. And some of the reasons I think it's going to be really, really powerful. And I'm really excited about what's coming out at Dreamforce. And I've seen some of the previews, and I think it's going to be great. So this tool is rapidly evolving and has grown so much in the last year, and it's going to continue to grow. So really exciting future. With that, Pato, I think we're ready for some Q&A.
Okay, awesome. So I flagged a few questions. I know we answered a few, so I flagged those. One of them, you want me to go over some of them? Is that okay?
Yeah, please do.
One of the questions is, well, we talked a little bit about business units, so that's still like part of a roadmap, right, of a product. So we still don't have the concept of business unit in Marketing Cloud Advanced, right?
Correct.
Someone asked, how is a lead object mapped and how to reference it in data graphs?
So when you actually set up Data Cloud for the first time through Marketing Cloud Growth in Advanced through the setup interface, it will map the standard fields, for you automatically. It uses Einstein to kind of map those fields across. But as you're, and it's going to map to the individual. So when we looked at that lead mapping here, let's look at this real quick. I can show you again. You look at this lead mapping, you'll see what the system did is it mapped the lead fields, like let's do first name. So you can see like first name is mapped to the individual here. This is an automatic mapping. So now this is what we're going to use inside our data graph. We're going to use that individual object or the individual DMO. So this is how the data is getting from the lead object to the individual DMO.
Yeah. Rob asked, what variables contribute to the data refresh? Obviously, interval, daily, hourly, etc. But does it depend on how much data you are refreshing and how much consumption is used?
Yes. So more fields, obviously more data. Think of it in terms of how many records Salesforce is accessing or how many records Data Cloud's accessing at the time. So if you have, one field, it's just, one record. But if you're going to multiple fields, there's more records to access. And it's also not based on net new either. So if you're looking at just saying, refresh a segment, it's not just going to say, oh, I found 2 new people, therefore I'm charging you, based on the 2 people. If it has to run through 1 million records to find those 10 people who match your criteria, it's going to look at how many records it actually circulated through or how many records it accessed to actually generate the segment.
Awesome. I like this one. It's my favorite, one of my favorites. Do you recommend to switch MCE to Marketing Cloud Growth and Advanced, or should we wait a few months?
Yeah, I think it's worth looking at right now. I wouldn't say do a hard conversion right now. I mean, we're not really recommending any customers do a hard conversion right now, as Salesforce is making the tool accessible and they're making it where you can actually, like right now, a lot of my clients are Marketing Cloud account engagement. It's actually, they can access this tool for free. They can test it. I mean, the thing that you're not getting data cloud credits. That's what you kind of have to pay for. But it's worth looking at the tool, investigating the tool, and seeing if it meets your needs, and evaluating it. I know they're looking at, Salesforce is basically saying all the features inside Marketing Cloud account engagement are going to be, able to be completed inside Marketing Cloud Growth and Advanced in the very, very near future. I don't have as much background information about Marketing Cloud engagement, but I do know that that's a little bit more of a complex system, and I think it will be a little bit longer before they get, all the features that are in Marketing Cloud engagement inside Marketing Cloud Growth and Advanced. But I certainly think it's worth evaluating and just keeping an eye on this product, because it is the future of Salesforce marketing. Before the call, Pato and I were talking a little bit. We were saying how it's been so cool watching Salesforce over the last couple of years. It's like Flow was the big thing several years ago, and then it switched to Data Cloud being the next big thing. And now, we have Agentforce, obviously. But what's happening is all these tools that Salesforce is investing all this time in are now kind of surfacing in one product. And it's really kind of neat to see how they had this vision for how all these tools could work together. And it's being pulled together into Marketing Cloud Growth and Advanced. So I'm really excited about the tool itself and the future of it. And I do think it's worth evaluating and just seeing if it meets your needs.
Great. Trying to see. Well,
I think I'll say on the features too. When you do that evaluation, if you find a feature that's missing, in my eyes, it's not a matter of if it will be there. It's really just when it will be there. The product team has been super responsive to customers and has been really adding new features very quickly to this product.
Is there, this is a question I have, like, today Marketing Cloud Growth, I understand you can create campaigns on the individual profile, and I think also campaign members. What's your workaround, so you don't have to use individual profiles to activate a campaign?
I'm not sure I'm following the question.
Sorry, unified profiles. I mean,
Yeah. Well, if you're using Marketing Cloud Growth or Advanced and you want to send an email, you have to have a unified individual. I mean, there's no workaround on that. I mean, it's just a core component of how the product works.
Could you add, because you can send to campaign members too, right? With Marketing Cloud.
Correct. You can create campaigns on campaign members, but it's still going to be using the unified individual record.
Okay. Could you potentially add? Yeah. So you still have to go through profile unification.
Yeah. The unification process is needed.
Right. Got it. I think you show the data graph part, right? That what you create. Did you show how to create a data graph and connect that?
I can walk through one real quick if you'd like to. Go back in here. So creating a data graph is really, let's go back in here. It's not that hard of a process. We're going to start from scratch. We're always going to use our, so we'll do this. We're going to use our default data space. Our primary data object is going to be our unified individual. Our unified individual. Then we're going to do our unified link individual. And then from here, you can start choosing your related object. So I can choose account. I can add in my lead object. Where's my lead object here? but I can add other objects here. And then from here, you can just choose the fields that you want to choose. So from the account, I want to use, create a date, for example, or I want where's my unified? So I can just choose, contact point email. I can bring in my email address for my person that I created. So you can just choose the fields that you need from here.
Right.
From the unified individual itself, you can choose, first name, last name. The key is that some of the fields are going to exist in multiple places. So the key is to choose the field from the path that's the closest or the most logical. Like, first name and last name could actually be found later, if you start looking at individual data. But we're going to pull it from the primary object. So we'll try to pull it from the closest object, I guess, is the way I'm looking at it.
Right.
Yeah. And when you're done with this, you can save the draft, and then you can preview it. As long as it's in draft mode, that's where you can still modify and make changes to it. But once you actually publish it, that's where it gets kind of locked, and you can't start removing those fields anymore.
I think it's important that reminder, right, that Data Cloud is a system of reference and not a system of record, right? Where you're not gonna be like using Data Cloud to convert leads or manage contacts or whatnot.
Right.
You can connect Data Cloud to CRM and then maybe use data actions to tell CRM, hey, this happened on the data, go do something. But I think that needs to be clear that Data Cloud is gonna read from all your data sources, it's gonna unify your data, and then you can use that for activations, right?
Exactly. Perfect.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any other questions that you want to go through. We have some minutes. It's when you're creating segments using, I guess, Einstein segment creation, I think it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Is that using like Agentforce to create a prompt-based segmentation?
It is using Agentforce. So one of the setup features, if you're setting up Marketing Cloud Growth and Marketing Cloud Advanced, you can actually enable Agentforce for marketing. And there are certain tasks that it has behind it that will allow you to use the natural language to create segments. The prompts do work pretty well in the tool. And what I like about it is when you actually use the Einstein Builder, Salesforce is very transparent. It lets you know up front, hey, you're using, generative AI, proof the data. So it's really really encourage you to use that human interface, the human review, not just truly rely on AI. And then what it'll do is it displays the logic of how the query was built and why Agentforce selected the certain fields that it's pulling into the query. And then it gives you the ability to say, yes, I agree with it, or no, I don't. So you can deselect or select what Agentforce is giving you. And then even once you do build that and you go in, and say yes, build, once inside the builder, you still have the ability to edit that query in the segment. So
right,
you can use Agentforce to help get you started. And I've done that a lot, like when I started working with the tool the first time, and I wasn't quite familiar with the data structures yet, direct attributes and related attributes. I found using Agentforce to help get me in the ballpark for a segment was helpful. Now that I've done it quite a bit, I just default to the visual builder because I kind of know where to find the data.
right.
But I do think it's a great way to get started.
Yeah, I like it, especially to your point. If you're not familiar with the data model that's underneath there, and then you can always verify what is a segment criteria that was built, so you are like making sure that complies. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
The thing that Salesforce released fairly recently, and I'm pulling it up real quick on one of my screens so I can show you, is and I really like this too. So let me share this. They're calling quick filters now. If I want to do a new filter, I want to replace a segment here. This is from the campaign within Marketing Cloud Growth or Advanced. You can do these quick filters now. So I look at these as almost like pre-written prompts for me. So if I want to build a dynamic list, or I want to build a segment based on people whose birthdays today, or people who are members of a certain campaign, or
Yeah.
click the link in an email. You can just do this and it will basically, build it for you. So like right
Yeah.
now it's going to look at people who are part of this campaign. So this is a neat way. It's almost like pre-written prompts for you. I like this quite a bit. I think this was a
Yeah.
great addition that they
That's
brought
cool.
into the tool platform.
Yeah, it's great.
So now if I go into that segment, I can edit it and you'll see that it's,
Nice.
campaign member equals this campaign that I was actually part of.
Right.
So it saved me the effort of having to go through the attributes and find the right
Right.
campaign field to pull over.
That's great. Yeah,
Really like that.
yeah, it's very cool. All right, Mike. Well, this was awesome. We answered a ton of questions. It was a great overview that you gave and resources. We're gonna have a little bit of a break here to go into Dreamforce. Don't miss out. There is a lot of sessions out there. If you are going, you can also stream on Salesforce Plus. So there's gonna be a lot of sessions around Marketing Cloud and Data Cloud and Agentforce, and also how to kind of like prepare for this next generation of marketing. I don't know if you want to go into the next slide that has the upcoming sessions.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Yeah, that's good. So on October 22nd, we have David talking about Agentforce, and then I'm going to publish the next series of sessions 7, 8, and 9. Now that I have all the creative and the content for them, I can actually publish them. So keep an eye for those upcoming sessions for October 29, November 6, and November 12. So with that, I think we're good, Mike. Thank you so much for all your time and sharing your expanded knowledge on this topic.
This was great. I enjoyed it, and thanks for putting this on, and thanks everyone for the great questions. So
Awesome.
again, if I leave you one thing, I just go ahead and test this tool, check it out, learn more about it. It's not going anywhere. It's the future of the platform. So the sooner you start learning this, the better. That's all what I'll give you.
There you go. Enough said. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.